Welcome to another edition of eYe Education. This series that we're running now, we're featuring the candidates for the Board of Education in the November 7th municipal election. Joining us today is the President of the Board of Education, Jen Bishop. Jen, welcome to this special edition of eYe Education.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here. Thank you for running again. And thank you for your service thus far.
Thank you.
As I've said with all of the candidates that we've had on, you know, the media situation this time is a little different. Mm-hmm. We don't have a daily paper. The radio is limited, although it gets some coverage. But so there's not a lot of people who may know who these folks are that are running. Mm-hmm. So for our viewers, you know, who's Jen Bishop?
Oh, geez, that's a loaded question.
Wow.
So I'm a mom of 2 kids in the district. I'm also a social worker here in the area. I've been working with families in our most vulnerable populations for over 20 years. Not over, like 21. It just sounds better when I say over 20. But I'm obviously been the board president for the last 2 years, on the board the last 4. Yeah, I'm an open book.
Why did you run for the Board of Education in the first place?
In the first place, so I actually worked for Child Protection a couple of years ago, and I was noticing that we were lacking in resources for a lot of our families, and a lot of the issues that were going on with families were, lack of resources, lack of mental health, lack of substance misuse treatment. And I said, I'm gonna go back to grad school and figure out how to fix this. So I went back to grad school. Was able to take a course in policy with the Leadership Education and Neurodevelopmental Disabilities Fellowship, but was able to learn a little bit about how to do government policy and advocacy work. And when I stepped back into the real world, realized there wasn't a lot of money in that, and I was going to have to get a real job. So I went and worked at the hospital, but somebody asked me if I was interested in running for the Board of Education. And having that conversation made me realize, like, all of the things that I want to do to help families to be happier and healthier are within the school system first. And let's teach kids how to grow up to be adults that they can be proud of. And I think I can make an impact on the community by making the educational system even better.
So you went and got elected.
I went and got elected.
And over the last 4 years, it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride.
A little.
There's been a lot of discussion amongst the board over various issues. Mm-hmm. There's been, for lack of a better word, instability in the superintendent's position. Mm-hmm. But that seems to have changed in this last 2 years. Calm has been restored to the meetings. And we have a superintendent who appears to be here for the long term. Mm-hmm. And your leadership is, I should get credit for bringing that to a head and still allowing discussion, mm-hmm. but allowing folks to disagree, but don't be disagreeable.
Yeah. But I think we have to remember, during the COVID times, people were fighting for, they were fighting for survival at that point. I don't hold any hard feelings to anybody who came into those meetings and were upset. They had every reason to be upset. They needed a place to give it, and I'm glad we're past that now. But I don't think it was something we were going to avoid anyway. I think we were in a position where we needed to be listening to everybody, and everybody had a lot of feelings. And
that seems to have hopefully been the last time we're going to see something like that in our lifetimes.
Hopefully.
And moving forward, we have exciting times with the opening mm-hmm. of a new middle school in the fall of next year.
Yes.
And that has also brought with it some discussion mm-hmm. because of redistricting. Now, truth in advertising, both you and I were on the redistricting committee for the middle schools.
Yes.
And for the most part, that plan was fairly well accepted and didn't get as much attention as the mm-hmm. elementary schools. Going forward, that's been delayed. The elementary piece has been delayed. Mm-hmm. What do you see in the next 2 years if you're reelected in terms of addressing the redistricting on the elementary level?
Mm-hmm. So I think the purpose in redistricting is really to make sure that we're using our resources most effectively, and that students and teachers are getting the most for their buck. I think when I think about redistricting, I think about are we spread appropriately? Are students getting the same amount of education and support in every single school? And if we're not, how do we fix that? It doesn't necessarily mean we have to open or shut schools, but we have to make sure that the resources are allocated appropriately. And sometimes that means shifting balances, just like we did with the middle schools, to make sure that things were fair and equal. And I'm really excited to see what discussions come next and what priorities are put forth from the district and from teachers and parents.
And it's easy to get emotional over it. As a parent who went through redistricting at the elementary level when my kids were in school, you do get emotional because there's attachments
Right.
and there's friends and everything. But
Absolutely.
you got to look at for the greater good.
But taking those relationships into account, I think one of the things that I'd like to see is, and we are working on it now, is the citywide PTO so that kids have more opportunities to engage with other kids from different schools, and also to support the schools that don't have as much parental involvement because, they're busier parents, is spreading the resources appropriately and equally amongst the students. Is how can we engage the other schools and the other parents into a whole district instead of just one school at a time?
Going forward, beyond the redistricting question, what do you see as the top 2 or 3 issues that this next board is going to have to deal with?
So I think some of the things that we're going to have to address are in regards to the Department of Justice information that's coming out. We obviously need to work on increasing the reading proficiencies of all students. We need to make sure that all of the students, no matter what language they're speaking, are getting an education that is equal. And I think, we need to be making sure that all kids are graduating high school proud and excited about their futures, and that people are exploring opportunities that they wouldn't necessarily know they were interested in. So keeping our academics rigorous, but also our extracurriculars exciting and engaging.
What about the teacher shortage, or more specifically, the shortage of paraprofessionals?
Yes.
You have any ideas that you'd like to see to address that?
Well, I think everyone needs to get paid more. That's the simple answer. But I think one of the things that we need to do is we need to celebrate our teachers and staff a little bit more. I think the teachers, especially during COVID, were being micromanaged by families out of concern for their kids. And I think they took a beating from that. And I think we need to get back to a place where we're looking at teachers as, I want to be a teacher when I grow up, and we need to celebrate and we need to support the paras, and we need to give them more resources so that they can do their jobs easily. And we just need to continue to celebrate them and make sure that they know what a valued member of our community they are.
Capital improvement wise, the 3 middle schools with the opening of the new one will be in great shape. Anything on the front line in terms of capital improvements in the elementary schools, or are the 2 high schools okay for right now?
I think a lot of the schools are coming up on their marks of starting to need, the next step of improvements. But again, looking at our resources, looking at our allocations and our student enrollment, where are those pockets and how can we best use the resources that we have? And people much smarter than me are going to come up with what are the next steps and explaining to us why it's important to be focusing on these areas. And I like to let the smart people make those decisions.
If someone were to come up to you who's in education and say, well, why should I come to Nashua to be a teacher?
Oh, because we're awesome. Nashua has a rich history of involvement in our politics, in our schools, in our community building. I think when you think of Nashua, you think of, small town, big city, but the opposite, small city, big town. I think when we want people to come here, we have to think about all of the things that we offer. We're an hour away from everything. If you're a skier, if you're a city person, you look at it and say, we have an amazing downtown that just continues to grow and get more interesting. And we also have the neighborhoods where everybody gets to hang out with each other and the kids get to play with each other. And I think we have a city that can meet everyone's needs, and you can just come here and find your niche and settle down and stay.
Now, you're a parent of 2 public school students in Nashua?
17-year-old, well, she'll be 17 in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Oh gosh, and a 13-year-old. So North and Elm Street.
So as we get near the end of the program here for the people who are viewing, why should they vote for Jen Bishop for another term on the Board of Education on November 7th?
Well, I want to continue doing the work that we're doing. I enjoyed the hard work of this, the researching, the listening. I want to continue working towards this. I want to continue to make our schools an amazing place to be. I want to make sure that our staff is paid fairly, that we're in line with other districts in regards to pay. I want to make sure that our students are receiving the best education possible. And I also want to make sure that parents feel like they're a part of this. And I have an open phone policy. Call me whenever you want, email me whenever you want. I enjoy listening to people. This is actually really hard for me because I like listening better than talking. So I would like to continue on so I can continue listening to the parents and to the staff and to our constituents about what they want our schools to look like so I can best mold it to make everybody's needs happy.
Jen Bishop, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
We've been talking to Jen Bishop, President of the Board of Education, running for another term in the November 7th election. This has been a special edition of eYe on Education featuring the candidates for the Board of Ed. Thank you for watching. I'm Ed Lecious, and we'll see you next time.